I thought I understood the question as, have civil societies become institutions of bureaucracy?
No, not of bureaucracy, but as the manner in which they register and start working in a structured way, like bureaucracies, like bureaucracies.
So we want to ask the history, or we want to look and reflect on the history of civil society organizations, NGOs, call them what they may be. They probably started off as charity organizations, as welfare organizations, somewhere where they thought that the government is not doing enough for the poor, for the differently abled, for people who are less privileged. But over the years, at least over the last 25, 30 years, we have seen a systematic onslaught of restricting freedom, liberties, the very fact that we are living. And if you're living and you have the gumption to question, then this institution called the state that you and I constituted with whatever powers that we have, chooses to restrict this civil society, this civilian. And so these organizations have strategized or institutionalized strategies to question, to start the politics of solidarity, politics of seeking, demanding that freedom, seeking, demanding, questioning the politics of impunity. Today we see so often everywhere the politics of complicity. It's taken for granted that there are a couple of organizations that somebody will start with, you don't know who the background is or you know who they are, and they are co-opted, like Meera said. They're co-opted and they are also civil society organizations. But the question we want to ask today is, why is it that civil society organizations are being feared by the powers that be? After all, we are just asking for that power which is ours. And as Meera pointed out, and the previous session, this power cannot be concentrated in a democracy, in federalism. You have to distribute power. Somewhere along the line, people chose that they will concentrate and control and hold on to that power. So civil society organizations today are reminding the powers that be that this power is not yours to use it with impunity. This power is not yours to decide stuff without consultation and without seeking opinion of us, the civil society, the people. Civil society is the people, and this people is the power. So when we are talking of civil society organizations, we have evolved to demand this from the powers that be. And I think we are also learning how to institutionalize these strategies so that we don't get relegated to being this welfare, charity organization. Certainly, civil society does not want to be a parallel government. That is not our job, and we do not want to be that. But the question I ask again, so why do the powers that be fear civil society? And should they fear them? I think they should, because it is time that we realize our power and tell that it is time for us not to allow this politics of colonization, this politics of caste and patriarchy. And I have to bring this word patriarchy because I wanted to start by saying South first, yes, you've again relegated India, and the powers that be have relegated the South to everywhere else except where we should be. And in this, we often relegate everybody who's not a male to the sidelines. So we want this patriarchy, this chauvinism, to shatter itself for the good of all of us. Because if you don't have that woman or a trans person representing in every space, even if you think it is tokenism, but please give that space. Probably in the next 250 years, we will have to look and say, can we find a man who can sit there?
Okay, thanks for that. And I'd be failing in my duty as a moderator if I don't mention some of the issues that could have been a point of discussion here. That even in the best of times, and more so now, we have earlier the terms of engagement with the state were different, but now organizations, individuals who are actually standing up for the rights of Dalits, Adivasis, minorities and women are singularly targeted. And there is a methodical way of publicly disgracing some of these people who have dedicated their lives to this activity, calling them Tukte Dukte gang, anti-nationals and whatever else. And the whole environment has become such that if you have an issue to articulate, you can't get 10 people onto the streets, even if they feel that this is what is happening is wrong. So in terms of that kind of thing, I think I must especially mention two efforts which have evolved out of this kind of thing. NAPM, the National Alliance for People's Movements, and also we have in Hyderabad an organization called Women. She mentioned that Women and Transgenders Joint Action Committee. Some 40 organizations together, we try to take up issues and work on them. It has become increasingly difficult to combat the media onslaught and media labeling of all activists as Tukte gangs. And the need for independent, autonomous media, I think, is very important, and it is part of a very important aspect of civil society, which we didn't mention. Because independent media, without an intervention from the independent media to actually spread the word about what is happening on the ground and how people are affected by it, we cannot survive or strengthen federalism, because we are being stopped, and the larger ecology, information ecology, is thoroughly poisoned as of now, I think. So I'm being urged to start the question-answer session, so we can go on to the question-answer session. Anyone has questions?
The farmers of this country have excellently pointed out through their struggle that we don't want the Adanis and Ambanis of this country to control our land, to control our agriculture, to take over our resources. I think it is for us, the rest of the citizens, to also decide whether we want an independent media or whether we want the Adanis, Ambanis and the big corporations to also control the media. I think that question is for all of us to think and answer.
Excellent.
I'd just like to also add to it, we also want to tell the media that you don't reiterate this kind of partisan talks and dialogues of what I should wear, what I should eat, who I should marry, where I should study, what jobs I must take. Why should you decide for me? And why should this media reiterate all of that? Because they think that it is news that they are giving. But what they are doing is repeatedly giving you this wrong information that somewhere along the way, I stop questioning and ask this: why should you wear this? Why are you eating this? I won't sit with you because you eat so and so. And that, I think, is also the job of the media, not to continuously give this wrong information of an opinion that somebody has formed. If you know in your heart that that opinion is lies, don't reiterate that opinion. We do not want to make that as a prejudiced attitude and a statement that people keep in their heads. That's psychodynamics at the end of the day. So media has this role not to reiterate lies.
So has the day come where the government doesn't care and the judiciary is the only shoulder that the civil society movement should lean upon?
That's the first one.
Yeah, and that does anyone, like, it's usually said that one person's revolution previously has led to the emergency in 1970s. So is it right now the stand for civil society movements to take that part of the revolution where it might threaten one enough for an undeclared emergency in the country through the civil society movements?
Okay, let me try and answer. I don't know what the declaration, there was this meme going around some time back, no, that with Modi and Indira Gandhi standing and he actually saying, why do I have to declare an emergency? It is anywhere, all around. So I think we are all facing the heat of that in so many ways, whether those of you in the media or those people of conscience within the judiciary as well, or those people in civil society, so on and so forth. So the emergency is all around us is the fact. But within this, and therefore I think it is significant also that, and Padmaja was also referring to previously, there is of course, I mean, these are not easy times and there is a lot of distress and one has to think 10 times before what to write on Facebook, what to say in which meeting, what you say, then what case would be put upon you, so on and so forth. So this is the context, but within that, there is still, and therefore the significance, responding to your first question, whether judiciary is the last hope. I mean, judiciary, of course, is a very significant part of the overall constitutional framework and it should be held accountable. In fact, some of us are part of a small campaign. It's called the Campaign for Judicial Accountability and Reforms, where we think we keep coming together to look at various judgments and also, look at things which are progressive within judgments and try and spread awareness around them, but also try and point out to judgments which are not responding to or not respecting the spirit of the Indian Constitution, especially the fundamental rights and directive principles. So I think the judiciary is, of course, a very significant component of the whole the structure in the state, in our democracy. But at the same time, whether it is it is often referred to as the last resort, but and therefore it has a very significant role. But I'm not very sure if we can entirely trust the judiciary with our constitution, to be honest. And we have a whole host of cases and precedents, whether in terms of judgments that where adverse orders have been given, or where the judiciary has been sitting over very significant constitutional matters. And what has that meant? There was a very brief reference to 370 in the previous session. So on, and one can keep naming. There are multiple such matters of constitutional import which have been, and justice delayed, justice denied. I mean, there is no greater example of how, by sitting over so many important constitutional matters, things have just been put in the back burner, and then it's called fait accompli. And then politics moves forward, repression moves forward, and then from behind enter the large money-making corporations. And so all of these, one also has to connect these various threads. The point, therefore, that I'm trying to make is, it is for an enlightened citizenry, for the people to realize that any single component of the state by itself cannot be the guardian of democracy or the ultimate guardian of the constitution. Yes, they have to be fully held accountable to the mandate that they have within the constitution, but nothing can replace an enlightened citizenry or people's organizing that is at the heart of sustaining democracy.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Ma'am.
Wonderfully put, Meera. I'm very happy that the accountability that is actually required and the very fact that an institution which is supposed to be a bearer, one-third of the bearer of the entire load of the country, is actually underperforming when they have a huge backlog of cases for what they ought to have done by today and have not taken it up also on time. So my question to the entire panel at the moment is, when I go back and look at the title of this session, Civil Society Movements, can they strengthen federalism? I don't see a clear answer coming out of the three talks that you have actually given. Is it a yes or a no? And unless and until the civil society is educated and capable of standing on its own feet, where these three pillars of so-called constitution or the governance are there to support and to listen, I think it's all bunkum. This is going nowhere. So what is your answer to this particular question? Is civil society today capable as a movement to strengthen federalism and accountability in India? I would like to have a combined answer between this panel, ma'am.
I think that there is a large number of the civil society that is ready. But yet, there is a larger number that still requires that education because the kind of information that they get is not enough. We also need to realize that it is just the last 15 years that higher education and dissemination of information has gone to a larger number of people. So it's going to take time. But yes, it is the civil society, an enlightened civil society, a civil society that refuses to be complacent is the answer to strengthening federalism.
Thank
because
you.
there is no other option to that. We already saw it. None of the institutions, neither our elected representatives, nor the bureaucracy, nor the courts have done what they are meant to be doing. So it is the civil society. And whatever is the small civil society that is there, that is coming out to challenge and move out of that complacent, comfortable position that we've got ourselves into, is keeping this federalism alive. And to your question, sir, I can't see you, I'm sorry, we have all of these people here, but yes, it is the civil society.
Yeah.
If I may intervene and say something, using the moderator's privilege, I guess.
My God.
You know, we have I just mentioned that we have this women's group in Hyderabad. Whenever an incident happens, there will be an avalanche of social media messages targeting the women who are actually on the street and fighting for things, going and filing police cases, protecting the victims, arguing for them. They are the ones who are on the street most of the time, our group. And the social media people say, where are the feminists? Where are they? What are they doing? I think when we talk, the reason I started with the question, who is civil society? I started with, we have to include ourselves when we talk about civil society. Are you in it? Is my question to you, the questioner. Are you civil society also? Do you consider yourself, if there is something happening wrong, will you step out onto the street? That's when civil society works. If it is for some activist or somebody who is doing something out of sheer commitment and wanting to right the wrongs that are happening, you can't blame them saying, are you effective? What are you doing? You're not doing enough. Unless people come, whenever we call for a protest march or a just peaceful demonstration somewhere, it takes, we have to move heaven and earth to get 100 people. Nobody is willing to stick their necks out. And we expect a handful of women to make change. Who are we? So many billions of people, if it doesn't affect you, but you want to question others about who is going to do this, I don't think civil society can work. Civil society must include every one of us. And without including ourselves in the process, we cannot question anyone. I'm sorry.
I just want to add to Padmaja what she said. Civil society, as you know, like our homes, is largely propelled by women. I know I may not be the most favorite person just now for a lot of people who think in that patriarchal lines. But remember, whether it is your home or it is our community, it is the women who are propelling it. And there is this patriarchal statements that will be said, families are breaking, children are not growing up very well, everything is going to, dogs, because, these women, they have just left all of this conventional sanskari spaces and roles and come out to demand. So somebody said, kitchen is a very sacred place for the woman. I'm in complete agreement with that person who said it, just like how the parliament is a sacred space for women. So civil society is also asking that that representation that we ask in the parliament is not charity that you're giving us. It is, after all, our right. Why would you want to usurp that power? Give it to us. In another 50 years, if there are women everywhere, we will certainly have more peace. And of course, federalism will continue to be strengthened.
There is this, and I think one can just go back to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, that yes, we do have this constitution, but as long as all of us are not part of that everyday project of deepening democracy, then we are not going very far away. So if we have come this far, at the cusp of 75 years, it is because of the efforts of so many people, from individuals to organizations to all kinds of efforts for deepening democracy. And I think that scope, that potential, that field is wide open even today. And of course, media, responsible media is very much part of that as well. And that those interventions of deepening democracy have to happen on an everyday basis. It is not key, one time something happens and then some magic would happen. It is an everyday effort. That everyday labor that goes into sustaining democracy is what makes a vibrant society and what really translates the promises of the Constitution into reality. And second, very quickly to respond to that federalism thing, I thought we were addressing it throughout. And civil society, again, in its broadest understanding, including mass organizations of many relatively progressive parties, have been part of, you look at multiple examples, for paucity of time, I'm not mentioning all those examples, but so many cases, it is in each of those specific instances, specific struggles, civil society has already been part of defending federalism. So it is not, I don't think the question of whether civil society, yes, I would rather frame it as, yes, civil society is in fact deeply involved in strengthening federalism. Yes, of course, we need to do much more and we need more broader solidarity in getting everyone's support in actually supporting and strengthening federalism.